talking to a commodity trader at a large grain firm in New York called Continental Grain. He was the head corn trader. And I was asking him what some of the factors that he considered whenever it was time to make a trade. And he was, at the time, I was about 27, and he was probably my age that I am today. And he said to me, "Sonny," he said, "when I get a warm feeling across the pit of my stomach, I tell myself it's time to buy corn." And now I hope that everybody here has a warm feeling across the pit of their stomach, that they're ready to listen to my talk for the rest of the session. Before I get started, I want to ask a question. As you can probably guess, my Indonesian is not very good. In fact, it's non-existent. And I would like to know how many people feel comfortable with English, or can I see a show of hands? We have a translator, and we can translate, but so it looks like most people would prefer the translation. Is that correct? Let me see a show of hands. How many people are satisfied with English? And how many people would prefer to hear the translation? There's about 3. Okay, I think I'm just going to continue in English, if that's okay. Otherwise, we might be here all night, because it's a slow process. But I'll try and speak slowly and make it easier for you to understand me. So it's the standard thing in the movies, when people can't speak a foreign language, they'll go up to somebody who doesn't speak the same language as me, and what they'll do is they'll speak slowly and loudly, thinking that that's going to make them understand. But anyway, we'll try and do the best we can. As Miss Natasha said, my name is Richard Kapsch, obviously. My name is plastered all behind me here. I'm the managing director of Pride Holdings, which is a Chicago-based company that provides financial consulting to various firms. And we are working with the Pride Group, which is an organization based in Dubai that is involved in many different types of businesses. They're involved in financial services, commodity exchanges, software development, healthcare, hospitality, and in manufacturing. So it's a kind of a diversified company, and I'm working with them to provide them assistance in developing commodity exchanges around the world. Okay? As Ms. Natasha said, my experience is 40 years in the futures and securities industry. So I'm a little bit older than most of you here, but it's not that funny, is it? Anyway, so my experience is 40 years in the business. I've had just about every job you can imagine in the commodity and securities industry. I've run my own brokerage firm. I've run a back office. I was on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for 11 years. So I think I've seen and done just about everything you can do in the commodities industry. During my time on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, I also served on the Board of Governors of the Exchange for 6 years. And while I was on the Board of Governors, I chaired the Foreign Currency Committee, because foreign currencies has always been my specialty. I was also involved in the CME's Strategic Planning Committee, which generated the first online trading platform in the industry. It's the system called Globex that is still working today. Okay. Now, getting back to Pride Group, we at Pride Group believe that we have developed a formula for developing successful exchanges. And tonight, we're going to talk about that formula. Actually, I'm going to talk about two things tonight. First is the formula that we have developed to develop commodity futures exchanges. What are some of the things that people should do when we're starting a new exchange? And then the second part of my talk, since we have a few traders in the house, I'm going to talk about my outlook for the markets themselves, for what's going on in the world economy, and how it's going to affect some of the markets that you trade, and as well as the currency markets. So it's going to be a two-part presentation. But first, let's talk about what makes a successful exchange. My experience, obviously, is with the CME, which is the largest and most successful exchange, commodity exchange in the world. And what we have done at Pride Group is patterned our approach after the CME's approach to developing a commodity business. However, we have added a few twists of our own that we think improves on the CME's method. Now, we use the CME as a model because it has three attributes that I think make it stand out above most other exchanges. First of all, it's an exchange that's the most innovative in the world. And by innovative, I mean in terms of developing new contracts. To give you an example of some of the contracts that were developed by the CME over the years, in 1972, they traded the first financial futures in the form of currency futures contracts. In 1979, they added the Euro-dollar futures contract, which has become the most successful short-term interest rate futures contract in the world. And it's used worldwide for hedging interest rate movements. And then probably the most successful of all of them came in 1982 when the CME started the S&P 500 index, an index of stock futures. Now you didn't have to go to the New York Stock Exchange and buy individual stocks. You could trade the stock market through the futures exchange. So these three examples are examples of the CME's innovation. And what we've tried to do at Pride Group is kind of, copy that innovation. The second attribute that's been exchanged that the CME's been very good at, and which we think is extremely important, is it's been able to develop liquidity in all its contracts. By liquidity, I mean heavy trading volume. By developing heavy trading volume and liquidity, you make the exchange attractive for traders all over the world to come to the exchange, and it's like a virtuous circle where it kind of builds on itself. As the more liquidity you have, the more traders come in, and the more volume, and the more successful the exchange comes. And the CME has been very good at developing this kind of liquidity. The third thing that we like about the CME is that it's an aggressive exchange. It's extremely aggressive. As you probably know, it's been scooping up other commodity exchanges around the world. It took over the Chicago Board of Trade, which was the oldest commodity exchange in America. It's taken over the New York Mercantile Exchange, which had the crude and the other energy contracts. So it's been an extremely aggressive exchange. And what we've tried to do is pattern our approach after the CME's approach.